The European Commission remains undecided about whether to grant membership candidate status to Ukraine. Disquiet about giving precedence to Kiev has been getting louder in Georgia and Moldova, who've been on the wait list for years. There's also hesitancy in some EU capitals.
Honestly, starting the membership process takes time. First and foremost, this is a country at war, and the most urgent matter is to stop the war, to rebuild Ukraine, and then consider it joining under the right conditions, both for the EU and for Ukraine.
The EU has some pretty basic requirements for membership, like being a free market economy, stable democracy, and an adherent to the rule of law. EU member states aren't running around making international appeals for weaponization to fight a hot conflict on their own soil. They're not calling for a no-fly zone over the country that could spark World War III, or folding neo-Nazis into their armed forces and pretending that's, totally normal and totally cool. Now, that's a lot of baggage. And all of these things, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has been doing while lobbying for EU membership. Now, French President Emmanuel Macron has proposed this sort of consolation prize of a membership in some kind of European political community, as he's coined it, which he says could include countries like Ukraine that ultimately want to be part of the EU someday. Now, that's kind of like telling kids at a Christmas party that they can come eat with the adults, but then seeing them at a kiddie table off to the side, with the paper cups, plastic cutlery, napkins with the little cartoons on them and balloons and everything. Clément Beaune, Macron's Minister of European Affairs, was being blunt and honest when he said that it could realistically take 15 to 20 years for Ukraine to join the EU. And the Portuguese Prime Minister said something pretty similar recently as well.
We don't need to open at this moment a negotiation or procedure that will take a lot of years. The great risk is to create false expectations that become bitter disappointment. Less legal debates, more practical solutions.
And Georgia and Moldova, as you've mentioned, have also been waiting very patiently to be invited into the EU's club or nightclub, behind the velvet rope. And Georgia doesn't seem to be too thrilled about all of this recent talk of Ukraine cutting in line either.
If an open conflict is one of the criteria for obtaining a status, then we don't want that. We demand a well-deserved status. Georgia is 10 heads ahead in all directions.
It's pretty telling that the most enthusiasm for Ukraine joining the EU is coming from member states that are net recipients of EU funds, like Slovakia and Poland, for instance. The net contributors of EU funding, in other words, the taxpayers are paying upfront and spending the most on the EU. Germany, France, Italy, at the top of that list of countries who are most footing the bill, have been much more blunt in their assessment. And those countries' leaders have been much more ambivalent as well in their remarks and actions around the conflict recently, suggesting perhaps a need to temper wishful thinking and ideology with a dose of realism.